Brad here, and I have a mini lesson for all of you coming to Django in June this year. And this whole lesson is about how to approach Django solos. How do we go about learning a solo from him? They're just they tend to be very difficult to understand also mentally and technically. So there's got to be a better way sometimes where we can absorb something without putting in too much time and being frustrated with how difficult it could be. So what I like to recommend is to take just bits and pieces of his solo, to listen to the solo as a whole, and then take maybe 2 or 3 pieces maximum in the beginning of things that you want to incorporate into your playing. And I say 2 or 3 because I don't want you to bite off more than you can chew. I don't want you to be overwhelmed with too much information, which is usually the problem that we all have, where we've learned hundreds of licks or hundreds of ideas, but when we're playing, we only use 10% of them. So the idea here is that you listen to the solo, you pick a couple parts that you like that seem simple, technically simple also is very important, and then you really just work on trying to understand these little bits and pieces before moving on and learning anything else. So the song that I'm going to use to kind of illustrate this is Django's HCQ Strut, and I'm going to start right with the beginning of his solo because he does something very distinct. To me, this is a big part of the Django style, and it's not a difficult chromatic or diminished run or a crazy arpeggio or anything too demanding, but it still is a really big part of his sound and his style. And what he does in the beginning of his solo, songs in G major, but in the beginning of his solo, he plays the theme, essentially, just adding his own style to playing the theme. Instead of playing the theme straight like... What he does is he adds bends, which were a huge part of Django's style, and it's something that we can all do right away. It's something that's accessible to anyone on any technical level, and so, but it's still a huge part of his style. So what he ends up doing is... So that is just essentially the theme, but he just added some bends and a little octave note. But see, and so I thought that was really distinct, and I liked that sound, so I learned it. It was simple, and it kind of opens me to the world of okay, Django used bends a lot, actually, you know, and so maybe I can incorporate some more bends into my own playing. And it's not difficult to do. You just pick a note and you bend up to it. And it's a really big part of this sound, and it's something you could use right away. And so when you're playing other songs, I Can't Give You Anything But Love, you can throw in bends there. And it's just kind of a simple idea to start taking right away. And another little piece that I took, which I think is very interesting also, is over the bridge being C major, C sharp diminished, and G major. So over this first part, Django just plays essentially a diminished lick. So he goes... That's all he does. And... that so I really like the sound of that. It was a really nice sound, and it's nice because it's over kind of a complicated chord change. This with the 4 sharp diminished and the 1 chord, which you find in a million gypsy jazz songs, and it's also part of the Christoph changes, which are in at least 50% of the songs. So it's really good to learn how to play over this. And so what he did there. So it's from a diminished thing, so I go... So it's from G diminished. Either way you want to look at it, B flat diminished, G diminished. But he's just playing G diminished notes over this whole chord progression. And I say, wow, that's a very simplified version of looking at that, and it works really well. And so basically now I can sit here and think, okay, so when there's this kind of movement in a song, I can just play, I take the tonic, in this case the song's in G, I take G and I play the diminished scale of G. So while the rhythm section is going, I can just do stuff like, I can just do stuff like this. I can just do random, I can do kind of diminished licks, diminished runs, these kind of things over this whole section. So to summarize, that's kind of how I approached this solo right away. First thing I did when I looked at the HCQ strut solos, I listened to the whole thing, and I said, what stuck out most for me? What were my favorite parts of the solo? That's what I'm going to be most motivated to learn. And I kind of isolated those parts, and then I picked kind of the simplest ones so I could start using right away. And I had the bends idea and this kind of little diminished pattern idea. And then I learned those, and now I started trying to put those into other songs and standards when I play. Of course, when I play HCQ strut, I put those into my solo, but also in any other song that has this kind of movement or this kind of idea. And that's kind of how I, right away, was able to digest something from the solo and already put it to use. And this helps to be a little less frustrated sometimes and to constantly progress. Okay, so I hope everyone's going to get some use out of this, and I'll see you around this summer.